Hey, welcome back to Mobility Project. We are at CrossFit Affliction in Davie, Florida. Just wrapped up a seminar. Got a love letter email from some coaching friends who work with a lot of water polo athletes, talking about this kind of concept where a lot of their athletes are experiencing tenderness in the biceps tendon, tenderness across the front of the shoulder. Sometimes maybe makes the hand a little bit numb, which could be a different thing. Either way, we're going to treat them the same thing. If you know about water polo, there's a lot of upright swimming that happens in scrambling. They can't always be in a good position, always looking for the ball. They spend a lot of time upright and then have to achieve separation from the player and be able to get the ball up and overhead. What we see is that arm comes back and forth, and we see a lot of anterior translation of that shoulder in a bad position. The game is fast, they catch a big fast ball, and because they're likely in a bad position, that shoulder tends to translate forward. When we see that loaded shoulder forward position, we know we get that translation loading across the biceps. It creates a lot of grief. In order to correct that, we want to try to make sure that our athletes have enough thoracic mobility to be able to extend without tilting and breaking, where we see that kind of loss of positioning, that shoulder comes forward again. So as we systematically work on this, besides getting on some ice on that spot, besides kind of managing that traditionally, here's the things that I would do to kind of work on this. One is let's improve thoracic extension. Double across ball. It's got to be a staple for all of our athletes, especially those athletes working in those kind of overhead positions back and forth to create some opportunity. Whoa, I don't have my mojo today. There it is, bam! All right? So I'm on there, I'm going to really work on extending, but then I'm going to work on getting arms up and overhead, one at a time, double. Make sure that I don't have any specific stiff segments. Remember that thoracic spine is a sink. It's a repository for kind of neural slack to the rest of the body. So if you're tied down in the middle of your thoracic spine, then the rest of the slack that comes has to come from the brainstem only. And we need to be able to feed forward length into that nervous system so we don't have a neural compromise piece. So improving mechanics so that I have improved the internal rotation, I have better shoulder positioning, better shoulder stability is also going to improve kind of the neural dynamic compromise that sometimes happens in the front, especially when you get that pulsating, burning, hand is numb thinking. How do we buy slack to the system? Certainly the first rib, kind of working on anything that's limited. If my athletes are having a hard time getting the arm overhead, we're going to see them compensate around that. We're going to see weird scapular, humeral rhythm kind of problems. So I need to get the ball in there, especially on that first rib for those guys, and making sure that they are clean in all of these ranges, overhead, out to the side, really kind of getting up and ungluing some of that tissue. It's just difficult to swim. We also see that when our athletes are stiff through the upper back, then they're going to compensate with a head-up position. And if I don't have movement through the whole system, then I'm going to, and if I'm stuck in a little bit of flexion because I'm a monster, then I'm going to have lower cervical flexion, upper cervical extension, and that's going to close off those joints. So anything that opens up the front. Furthermore, though, I also want to get something that just unloads this in a big fascial component, fascial train kind of idea. So grabbing any kind of band, hooking that up, working on that external rotation, tight, and then just hanging. I can contract, relax in there. A lot of times athletes are going to feel that they're tight. You can even see how the fascial compartments end up winding up, and you can actually see almost the rotations in that. So spending some time loading that bicep, keeping the back tight, kind of coming in, but not loading that bicep in this nasty position. Loading that bicep in that good shoulder back position. If you're game for it, you can always do the Superman, keep the shoulder back, right? Working on keeping the shoulder back and then rotating through allows me to kind of capture the front of the shoulder effectively and open some of those tissues up, right? For effect. And what else do we have up there? Sleeping. So one of the things that makes a big difference is that once my tissues are tight and hot, if I sleep on my back, I tend to see this happen. And then I'm like, all day long I'm burning and it's getting worse. So if we drop a pillow underneath the elbow, this is a good Coach Danielle's swimming tip from Santa Cruz. She would sleep, grab here, and this would allow her shoulders to drop in the back of the socket where they belong. Chances are you're going to see that your swimmers are also missing internal rotation, and that's that anterior translation of that shoulder. So let's keep the shoulders pinned, let's get a super friend involved, and let's work on that internal rotation, either solo or with a friend, but really let's hammer that internal rotation so our athletes have an option that doesn't just include shoulder forward position. Last, hitting that first rib. This is a broomstick, it's low tech. I'm going to get this thing right up into kind of the pit here. Sitting back, get a little pressure on there. This could be a barbell, this could be a broomstick with a tennis ball on it. And it's going to be loading right into that first rib. And then I'm going to come up with my arm, even come across, and try to get that rib to drop down. That first rib does several things. One is it might limit my elevation of my shoulder, but it also creates the floor over underneath this brachial plexus. So scalenes run over the nerve, the brachial plexus on top of that first floor. That first rib is that floor. So if I get that to drop down, I create more space and improve my mechanics, and I don't have to compromise around it. That's a basic start. Good luck, swimmers. There's a little love letter for you. See you guys tomorrow.